We often hear news from somebody, and we tend to resonate with that news based on our relationship with this person. Instead of making up our own minds and hearts based on personal research, we believe in the validity or not of such news, based on our relationship with the bearer of said news, without question. We have effectively delegated our personal truth and given away our own power without grasping the monumental error we commit. This is not only related to information we hear or read. This is particularly necessary when it comes to relating to other beings in all aspects. We need to have a more enlightened relationship to our own selves first, as a proper foundation to relate to other beings. Becoming sovereign beings requires us to recognize that we need to have the courage to achieve self-competence, self-mastery, and self-integration. It is not easy, but this honest effort will in time yield more complete beings than we were earlier. The great changes that we are going through now are creating the necessary friction within us, as well as between us, leading us to become better beings. We are currently polarizing extremely on various issues, such as the validity of climate change or which warring parties we support and for what reasons. This polarization creates such aggravation within us that we are coming apart from within. The constant battle arising from me versus you and us versus them on multiple levels is what's creating malignant crises where conflict becomes war. This ongoing, rampant polarization on this polarized prison planet is leading us to our doom, and we are either not recognizing the causes behind the obvious causes or are disempowered to halt the process, or both. This is where personal courage and the deliberate application of free will are necessary and represent the only factors that can instigate change from within. To stop the endless turning of the wheel of pain, suffering, and misery, we need to own our mistakes collectively, humbly swallow our pride, and take steps to reconcile our differences externally, while we reconcile our own internal parts that are uniquely responsible for creating the mess within our consciousness, reflecting that mess to the external world. As we are coming apart from within, we are recognizing our parts, both good and bad parts. We are forced to come to terms with them, accept them as part of us, and integrate them within us by healing the trauma they created, as well as the trauma they were caused by. For the nerds among the readers, by the way, this is a term of endearment for me. I consider myself one as well. This process can be likened to the process of nuclear fusion, whereby atoms of lower atomic weight are fused together to produce atoms of a higher atomic weight. As above, so below. This is another example of the immensely beautiful, holographic, and symmetrical nature of the universe, where all aspects of it are reflected within ourselves. You may ask at this point, what now? Well, there is no easy answer in terms of what to do, as all polarizations within require an enlightened heart-based attitude to overcome. This heart-based attitude will shine like a beacon in the external world and present the why and the how relating to the necessity for change through its stark and positive contrast with what is. The what will take care of itself when we recognize first the why and then the how. We need to be more heart-based because our mind and our ego have led humanity individually and collectively on a path of pain and destruction. Reason and intellect have been overutilized by the ego to create the necessary basis for survival. But this utilization of the mind by the ego as a tool for survival is now increasingly becoming a clear and present danger on its own. Without the tempering influence of the heart, the mind and the ego now constitute a threat to the survival of humanity. This is because we have reached a level of technological development that has by far surpassed the ego's willingness to apply empathy to our thoughts and actions, thus giving rise to an imbalanced beast consciousness. We need to utilize the mind and the heart in tandem. To answer what can be done can be addressed by heart-based negotiation, both within us and between us, depending on a case-by-case basis and considering all valid grievances of each side. This is because polarization begins within us. Easy? Not really. But here is where courage and the deliberate application of free will can make a difference. It all comes back to what we always knew. How badly do we want peace, not just between us, but also within us? Is it something that would be nice to have, or is it something that we can't live without? Can we have peace within us while we don't have peace between us? These are questions that we must answer for ourselves, honestly and without reservation, because they will dictate not only the quality of our lives on all levels, but our survival as a species as well. Resolving to attract and cultivate peace on all levels of our lives must become our first priority, paving the way to integration and a golden age for humanity, because we are slowly understanding that life's meaning will always be polarized and biased by the absence of peace and ultimately unconditional love. Honestly, seeking genuine peace on all levels of our lives will immediately counteract any subconscious and unconscious concerns that cloud our minds, leading us to recognize the need for survival in the first place. As we examine our lives through this perspective, we begin to consciously distance ourselves from the perceived need to survive, as this need has been created by the ego itself. Even in cases where survival becomes a necessity, such as being in a war zone and forced to defend ourselves, for example, this need to survive will be illuminated by the internal peace and the love of self we feel, and is a whole different feeling from the survival fear we felt before. That's because love of self and preservation of self are motivated differently. Love of self is motivated by the heart, and preservation of self is motivated by the ego. We can all do our part in bringing about a state of being that is imbued by peace and unconditional love. By resolving to attract peace within, that's the part we do, we are allowing peace to blossom from within our hearts. That's the part we are. This is how we create lasting peace in external reality, since external reality is reflected from internal reality. In a broader sense, that's also how we move from doing to being. The more peace we feel, the closer we are to our natural state of being, which promotes the concept of being rather than doing, where all actions flow from our hearts, instead of being perceived by the ego and executed by the mind. It is better to conceive our actions from our hearts, imbued by harmony, unity, and synchronicity, stemming from unconditional love and universal law. Actions manifested in this way are just and appropriate because they are automatically considering the needs of others, reconciling them with our own personal needs, because they are based on universal law. This is the power within us that we have delegated to each other, condemning ourselves to a life of pain, suffering, and conflict. Without this power, we are unable to reach our full potential.